Hey guys, welcome to Church Talk, where we talk about everything involving the local church. My name is Rob. Today we're talking about how to run sound in a small church. So today we're talking about running sound in a small church. If you are a sound engineer, if you're a tech, you're probably going to say you're going to tell me running sound in a small church is the same as running sound in a large church. And then a lot of you are going to say, there's a lot of differences, technical differences. Well, today, guys, I'm not really talking so much about the technique, not really talking so much about the technical aspects of the sound system, or that you need treatment and things of that nature. All that is applicable, but today's video, I'm talking to those of you guys who are volunteers. You are in a church that it's a smaller place, and the church really wasn't designed for sound. We have a lot of people just exactly like that. And when I say a small church, really, I'm meaning the average size church in America, even to maybe to the mid-sized church. When we are probably like 50 people up to maybe a couple hundred people. That's what I would consider a smaller church. But as I'm finding out, that's the average size of the church in America is around 65 people. So those of us who are in a church of a couple hundred or a few hundred, we're bigger than the average. And for those of you guys who are in churches of several hundred or thousands, you're in a very large church compared to the rest of the United States. So today's video, I'm just speaking to those of you guys who are more of in a smaller church, and we'll be talking about some tips on running your sound. So tip number one is to be present for all of the practices and the rehearsals. This is something that in many smaller churches, the sound guy is looked at as he's a sound guy that shows up on Sunday mornings and runs the soundboard. And even our lingo and how we speak is different when we're in a small church versus a large church. Not every single one of them. There's some people in small churches who know a lot about audio and who they have just as much knowledge as the biggest church out there. They may not have the budget to do the same things, but the knowledge is still there. So I'm not saying this is every single church, but I think the majority of them, it is. People that aren't trained in that area. And like I say, we call the mixer or the sound console the soundboard, because it looks like a board, and that's where all of our sound goes through, and it's just been adopted as the soundboard. Where you go to more of a professional place and it's called a console, or some of them may refer to it as the mixer. So even our terminology changes when we go from that larger, more professional type of setting down to more of a volunteer basis, where we don't have quite the budget, and we don't have a lot of times we don't have the knowledge, but we're making things work. We're finding people within the congregation that can pick it up and learn it and do the best that they can. And so these tips are for you. So go to all the practices. You're part of the band. If you are the sound guy, if you are the sound technician, if you are the technical lead, whatever your church calls you, when you guys have practices, you need to be included, and you need to be there and turn things on, power things up the correct way, because there are correct ways and incorrect ways to power up your equipment. So make sure that you're powering things up correctly, but you're there and you're present at practices, so that you can, number one, practice your craft of running the sound and operating the board, and setting things up, but also so you know what's going to happen, and you guys are working together more than just on a Sunday morning, because you are part of the worship team. The tech ministry is a, I wouldn't even say it's a branch of, but it is part of the worship, because without you sitting behind the console or the mixer or the soundboard or whatever you call it, without you sitting there and operating that and turning things where they need to go, the band, no matter how good they are or how bad they are, they're going to sound not good. If you turn everybody down, then nobody can hear. If you turn everybody way up and people are holding their ears, then nobody's listening. If you mix it to where your drums are really loud and you can't hear the vocals, then nobody is joining in worship. Or if you mix it to where the lead vocals are down and the harmony vocals are up, everybody sounds out of key and sounds bad. And so you are part of the worship team. That is your instrument in front of you, and you are mixing everybody to give the best sound possible for your worship team and for those who are holding a microphone or an instrument. So you're part of the team. Number two, I would say to get to know your mixer or your console, whether it is digital or it's analog, doesn't matter. Many times the board, now I will say that quality, sometimes the name brand will give us, better quality than others or less quality than others. But many times it's what we know and the knowledge we possess on how to run a certain piece of equipment that will make it happen. I've ran some equipment that's not very good in the past, and we've made it work. Did it sound as good as what it would have if we had, the latest, greatest equipment? No, it didn't. There was no comparison, but we were able to make it work. There was this sound system that had it only had two outputs on it, a left and a right, and there was no monitors out. It was a powered board, and we ended up panning everything to the left for the monitors and panning everything to the right for the mains, and we had to make things work, and we had to mix it. And it's an off name board that they're just using for the time being, and things like that can be a little bit difficult. But when you get to know your personal board, then all those small things that you can work out, you know what you can do. You know what that board will do. So get to know what your board is, what it can do, what it's capable of doing. Do your research on it and know what you're operating. Number three, most churches are not looking for a professional, polished sound, because you can't get that anyway. Most of our churches are not studios. A lot of them were made before there was even sound equipment, and so when you stand up front and you're talking, your voice is naturally carrying. But now that you've added instrumentation to everything and you've amplified voices, now we get this loud roar, and we really need acoustic treatment. But in some cases it's expensive, and they're not going to do it, and we need to overcome the echo and the things in the room, and it's a battle. But churches aren't expecting a professional, polished sound, but what they're wanting is a clear sound. So a lot of times people will want the ends of our phrases to kind of roll off and kind of disappear and put that echo and that reverb to it. But in a lot of our churches, we already have that amplified anyway. It's magnified, how are you going to say it? There's a lot of echo and there's a lot of reverb in a lot of our churches without adding anything. And so what we need to do is try to make our sound as crisp as we can, so that the pastor can be understood, The worship team is a little bit more difficult because you've got a lot of sound that's being produced, and it's got this echo because of the building. But we need to try to make everything as crisp as we can. So without getting into all the, there's a lot of videos out there, and there's a lot of technicians out there that will tell you technically how to achieve that. But that's what we're looking for in church sound. Most churches, most pastors, they're not looking for somebody that can tell you how to achieve it. They're looking for somebody who has an ear and who's not afraid to turn dials and find what it needs to sound like. So don't be afraid to mess something up. What I would suggest in that instance, don't do it on a Sunday morning. But that's part of the being at practice, is so that you can dial things in. Maybe you can take a picture of, if you're in an analog board, take a picture of what's there right now and then begin to play with it. See what is what. And if you mess it up, go back to your picture and set everything exactly as it was. You didn't mess it up. You turn everything right back. But don't be afraid to turn those dials and figure out what is going on. How can I make my pastor sound clearer? Get that ring out of, get that roar out. Those type of things. That's what most pastors are really looking for in a small church anyway, with even the music, but especially the speaking, is we just want to be amplified so people can hear and so that they can understand, so that what a pastor is saying is brought across clearly. So we don't want a bunch of reverb on a speaking vocal, and most of our churches, we don't want a bunch of reverb even on the band, because the room has enough of it already, and we're battling that from the beginning. So we just want things to be clear. Number 4 would be do a good sound check before service. I've been in some churches where there's no sound check at all. You just kind of roll in and turn the system on, and you guys start, and the sound guy is trying to mix things as you go, and it makes it difficult. We didn't do a sound check pre-service. So if you are a sound technician at a church, you are the soundboard guy, you are the mixing person, whatever your terminology is for your church, you need to get there early, and your worship team needs to get there early, and you guys need to do a sound check before service. It's going to sound a little different when nobody's in there as it does when people come in, but if you get it dialed in with nobody there, then it's just going to sound better when people do come into the building. And number 5, I would say to learn how to properly EQ for your space. Now that's something that is going to be different with every person and every space. There's tons of videos out there on EQing, whether you are EQing on a digital console or if you've got an analog console. It's the same thing, but it's done differently. On analog, you can't really see exactly what you're doing. Where you can, but you don't see the spectrum. You don't see the wave. Where on a digital board, a lot of times you can see it. You visibly see the wave and what you're doing. So I think the digital one makes it a little bit easier. Some people would say, no, I disagree, because I want to listen to it and not look for it. So regardless, if you watch some videos or get some training on how you need to EQ your board and how you need to EQ your people, maybe have somebody come in, have a professional come in on a practice day and EQ your people, EQ your board, and show you how to do it, train you how to do it, not just do it for you, but train you how. That way you can take care of it. You have a special speaker coming in. His voice is so much different than your pastor's voice or singer or whatever. that you can change that as you need to. And most of the time, a lot of times EQ doesn't really have to be changed very much, but sometimes it does, especially if it's not set up already. If it's just kind of, hey, here's a board that's been inherited and we're moving in and we're a small church, we need to get those EQs set up properly. And a lot of times all we do is just look at volume and we're mixing and we just can't seem to get things right. That's because there's certain frequencies that need to be dropped out, and there's certain things that we need to EQ. So I would say tip number 5 would be to learn how to properly EQ. If this is something that you just can't get down, I would say to hire a professional to come out and to sit in on a rehearsal, and maybe to sit in a church service, get everything dialed in for you, and then don't touch your EQ at all. And every 6 to 12 months, have that guy to come back and sit in again and just make sure everything is remaining dialed in for you on EQ, because that's something that's pretty important, and it can go out. But if you can learn how to do it yourself, I think that's going to be a major benefit, because number one, we just want things to be as clear as possible and for the people to understand. That to me is the main goal of everything. Is we want to amplify what is happening from the platform. That's it. And in the best way possible. So we want to amplify it. We don't want it to sound, studio polished. I mean, it's great when it does. It's great that we have that type of sound, but we're not going to achieve that in the church. You're only going to achieve that mostly in a studio, or if you have the really good equipment that you can record it and then put things in post, you're going to have that studio quality. But what we're wanting in-house is to make sure that everybody can hear it and understand it, because the most important thing is the word is being delivered to the people, and the people can hear it, and that's what we're wanting. So yeah, guys, if this is the type of content that you like, or if you've gotten any value out of this video, maybe you're a small church sound tech, like the video, share the video with somebody that you know. And if you haven't subscribed already, would you click that subscribe button for me and be notified? Click the bell as well and be notified for whenever I upload new videos. And guys, we'll see you guys next time on Church